time to mix things up. Don't worry, still talking MLS on this channel. But for now, I want to go back and look at a league that had the guts to challenge MLS. But in the end, came up a little short. This is Rest in Peace NASL. Part 2.
The NASL, the North American Soccer League. Wait, hold on, not this one. This one.
Before I really hop into this, I think it's important to establish that these two leagues are not the same. It's not as if the original NASL went on hiatus for 27 some years and then came back with the same ownership. No, this is its own separate league. However, they did name themselves after the original NASL, who apparently had no problem with the name choice. In fact, longtime NASL commissioner Phil Woosnam wrote a public letter encouraging the new league and wishing the new NASL luck. So, okay, no bad blood between the two. Cool. Okay, so why? What was the point of starting up yet another new soccer league? I mean, at this point, you already had MLS and 2 divisions of USL. And at this point, it was fair to ask whether the United States really had enough fans to be able to support another league.
So here's what happened. In 2007, Nike bought out Umbro, who at the time was the majority owner of USL. And because of the purchase of Umbro, this now meant that Nike was the majority owner of USL. That's just so bizarre to me. Because, like, you know how Adidas outfits all of the MLS teams? Can you imagine if Adidas owned MLS? Yeah, weird, right? Well, the Nike ownership of USL didn't last long because they didn't want to own an entire league, as it didn't really align with their core values. MLS at the time was interested in purchasing USL, but they decided to pull out as well. Eventually, there was a buyer, New Rock Soccer Holdings LLC. Now, during this time, there was a lot of uncertainty with the USL, and 6 markets, along with St. Louis AC, a team who hadn't begun playing USL yet, had decided to jump ship and form their own league. These markets weren't happy with USL over its management structure and for the sale to New Rock. Now, I do have to admit, I tried looking up online what the problem was with New Rock, and I didn't really get much of an answer. Those teams that left were the Atlanta Silverbacks, Carolina Railhawks, Miami FC, Minnesota Thunder, Montreal Impact, and Vancouver Whitecaps. USL were obviously pissed because a huge chunk of their teams just dipped before the season and considered taking these teams to court.
Fuck you.
And US Soccer elected not to take a side either way. Instead of sanctioning both leagues, they sanctioned neither the USL or NASL and forced them to play nice with each other and compete in a temporary league which lasted 1 season. So in 2010, there was MLS and the USSF D2 Pro League. Yeah, what a mouthful. The new temporary league featured 2 divisions, one NASL and one USL. And then at the end of the league, the top 8 teams, regardless of division, advanced to a 8-team playoff. The 8th seed, the Puerto Rico Islanders, ended up winning the championship over the Carolina Railhawks. And because the Islanders were in the USL division, I guess that means USL won that round? Oh, but wait. Then the Puerto Rico Islanders actually decided to play in the NASL after all in 2011, so maybe it was the NASL that actually won after all? I don't know. It's confusing. There was a lot of teams shuffling around at this point. But yeah, after that one weird USSF D2 Pro League season, I guess US Soccer was like, okay, that was dumb. Let's just sanction both leagues. Now, they decided that MLS was going to be Tier 1, NASL was going to be Tier 2, and USL was Tier 3. I'll give my thoughts on that later. Okay, so after 2 years of build-up, it was finally time for the new NASL to launch.
In the inaugural 2011 season, there were 8 teams competing, the aforementioned Atlanta Silverbacks, Carolina Railhawks, Montreal Impact, and Miami FC, now known as Fort Lauderdale Strikers, after a rebrand. The Puerto Rico Islanders moved from USL to NASL along with FC Tampa Bay. NSC Minnesota Stars replaced Minnesota Thunder after they folded, so they were technically an expansion team, as well as FC Edmonton, who were also in their first year of existence.
But wait, What about AC St. Louis and the Vancouver Whitecaps? Well, AC St. Louis folded after their only season in 2010, and Vancouver never actually played in the new NASL. Their last season as a lower division club was in the USSF D2 Pro League because they joined MLS in 2011. That wouldn't be the only team to leave NASL, as a year later, Montreal would join MLS as well.
Now, I kind of feel obligated to bring this up because I've heard a lot of critics of MLS say that they were poaching these teams from the lower divisions, that the only reason why MLS was going to these markets was to block competition from the lower divisions. And with all due respect to people who believe that, that is ridiculous. I mean, you can watch this old MLS Insider episode with Joey Saputo, the owner of the Montreal Impact, now known as CF Montreal. He makes it very clear how hard he was fighting to get into MLS. And even when MLS originally told him no, he kept fighting to get into the league. And that's the case for all lower division teams. All lower division teams, if they were given the opportunity, if they had the resources, all of them would be thrilled to join MLS. The only exceptions I could think of are the New York Cosmos, which, spoiler alert, I'll be talking about them later, and also Detroit City, mostly because Detroit City supporters hate MLS and everything about it, and they would probably attack their owners if they tried to join MLS, so no, that's not going to happen.
But from MLS's standpoint, I can promise you, it's not about trying to screw over the other leagues. Sometimes we forget that sports leagues are businesses, and MLS is in the business of making money and finding markets that will make them the most money. These markets apply for MLS, not the other way around. Unfortunately, for the NASL, there really wasn't much they could do to prevent teams from leaving. 2011, the inaugural season. 8 teams, 6 of them make the playoffs, and you can already see a big difference between this league and the original NASL. For one thing, they only allowed 7 foreign players per roster. The original NASL teams, if you remember, were often devoid of any American players, which meant the league did very little to help the American player in a time when the US desperately needed it because they were never able to qualify for the World Cup. Also, all of the unique rules that the old NASL applied were gone. No more countdown clock, no more NASL-style shootouts, no more 35-yard offside line, and no more wonky scoring system where you get points in the standings just for scoring goals. Also, no salary cap. Not that, the old NASL really stuck with theirs. It was, for all intents and purposes, a traditional soccer league, with some nostalgia of older team names thrown in. NSC Minnesota Stars snuck into the playoffs as a 6th seed and then managed to take out the 3 seed, FC Tampa Bay, then shocked the 1 seed North Carolina Railhawks in the shootout in the semis, and then finally outlast the Fort Lauderdale Strikers in the Soccer Bowl. Yeah, they even took the name of the championship from the original NASL as well. Fun fact about this 2011 NSC Minnesota Stars team, their assistant coach Carl Craig would play his guitar in the locker room after wins, and his favorite song being Wonderwall. A video of the team singing in the locker room got leaked out to the fans, who eventually started singing the anthem after wins. So, the legend of Wonderwall with Minnesota United actually began with NSC Minnesota Stars in the NASL. 2012 saw a couple teams rebrand and the San Antonio Scorpions come in as an expansion team to replace Montreal, who left for MLS. Minnesota nearly repeated its feat from last year of coming into the playoffs as a 6th seed and winning the whole thing, but this time fell to the Tampa Bay Rowdies in the PK shootout in the final.
So if we're being honest, the first 2 years of this league's existence went okay. I mean, it really went off without a hitch, unless you count Montreal leaving, but that really wasn't NASL's fault. But then Commissioner David Downs stepped down and was replaced by Bill Peterson, and immediately it seemed like the mentality of this league changed. Because with David Downs in charge, the goal was primarily to create the best 2nd division possible and explore markets that MLS hasn't tapped into yet. But then, once Peterson took charge, very quickly, it seemed like it became NASL versus MLS.
Bill Peterson became the hype man for the league. In a Sports Illustrated article by Brian Strauss, he proudly boasted that there were over 40 markets interested in expansion and claimed that the NASL was the future of soccer in this country. In 2013, the league made some major changes to its schedule, now opting for a split season with a spring champion and a fall champion. And at the end of the year, the top seeds from both the spring and fall seasons would meet for a 4-team single elimination playoff. Now, even though I didn't personally love the format, I like the single season with playoffs at the end, I do get the appeal to it, so I can't really hate on that too much. And plus, having a break in July, that lined up with the summer transfer window, which was really convenient for the league. The spring season played out, everything went normal, and then, in the fall season of 2013, came a recognizable name: the New York Cosmos. Holy crap. Wow, the Cosmos are really back. And they're not in MLS. Rocco Camiso was originally courted by MLS, but he turned them down because of the high expansion fee and because of the lack of pro rel. At this time, expansion fees for the NASL were only about $10 million, and there were whispers about the NASL adopting pro rel in the future, although no serious plans were ever really laid out. And just like the Cosmos of old, they spent the money and brought in the stars. Spanish national teamer and longtime Villarreal playmaker Marco Senna was the first big name to come to the Cosmos, and he led them to a Soccer Bowl title in 2013, scoring the winning goal in the championship game against the Atlanta Silverbacks. Senna wouldn't be the only big name brought in, though, as the longtime Real Madrid and Portuguese national teamer Raul would join him a year later. Okay, I'm probably going to get pushback for this, but not to disrespect those two players. They are stars, and you can argue that they are legends, but it's not quite the same level as Pelé and Beckenbauer from the old NASL. A couple years later, former EPL star and World Cup vet Joe Cole would join the Tampa Bay Rowdies, which, again, he's a star player. That is a great signing for the league. But it's not quite the same level as signing Johan Cruyff or George Best, and it's certainly not on the same level as MLS bringing in David Beckham or Thierry Henry.
So credit to NASL, they really were swinging for the fences with these signings. The question is, did they pay off? Kind of. Well, I'll tell you why. Right after I tell you about today's video sponsor, BETUS.com. BETUS.com. All the soccer betting in one place, including MLS and USL Championship. You bet on single games, you make parlay bets, you can make prop bets, you can bet on who's going to score, what time he's going to score, is there going to be any yellow cards, is there going to be any red cards, is there going to be a streaker on the field? Actually, I'm not sure about that last one. BETUS, if you can't do that yet, you might want to add that. Use the promo code DANNYT when signing up and get a 125% sign-up bonus. All of the links in the description below. Again, BETUS.com, BETUS.com, promo code DANNYT for a 125% sign-up bonus.
The Cosmos did dominate the new NASL like they dominated the old NASL, winning a total of 3 soccer bowls in a 4-year stretch. But they played in a much smaller stadium than Giant Stadium like the Cosmos of old. The new Cosmos played on the campus of Hofstra and weren't able to sell out a 12,000-seat stadium. Not even for Soccer Bowl 2015, where they only sold a little over 10,000 tickets. Even worse than that was Soccer Bowl 2016. There was a scheduling conflict with the stadium in Hofstra, so they had to move venues. See, NYCFC, you're not the only ones that have to change stadiums in big games. Eventually, they settled for Belson Stadium at St. John's University, and only 2,100 tickets were sold for a championship game. Yeah, maybe the issues of the new NASL weren't as obvious as the issues of the old NASL, but they definitely still existed. The league would continue to expand, adding Indy 11, Ottawa Fury, Rayo OKC, and Puerto Rico FC over the years. But the league also lost some teams. Atlanta Silverbacks and San Antonio Scorpions would fold after the 2015 season. Fort Lauderdale Strikers and Rayo OKC would fold after 2016. Minnesota United would join MLS after 2016. And the Tampa Bay Rowdies and Ottawa Fury would join USL after 2016. Oh, great. So now teams are jumping ship to USL? Now, a lot of it was just bad management, but also the new NASL just had some really bad luck. For example, Rayo OKC was owned by Raul Martin Presa, who was also the owner of Rayo Vallecano of La Liga. Well, because Vallecano was relegated in the 2015-2016 season, that means they lost a lot of money and weren't able to fund Rayo OKC anymore. The league shrunk back down to 8 teams by 2017, and the writing was already on the wall. This league was dying. The marquee team, the New York Cosmos, were again losing millions of dollars, as were the newest expansion team, the San Francisco Deltas. It was even reported by the San Francisco Chronicle that the team could fold even if they managed to win the Soccer Bowl. Which is exactly what happened. 12 days after topping the New York Cosmos in Soccer Bowl 2017, the San Francisco Deltas ceased operations. So with one more desperation attempt, the NASL threw the biggest Hail Mary in the history of pro sports by taking U.S. Soccer to court. You see, NASL felt as though U.S. Soccer were colluding with MLS to sabotage the NASL, and they wanted to challenge MLS and secure Division I status, which is hysterical because they weren't even able to meet the criteria to be Division II.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Now, most of us know there is not promotion and relegation in this country. Some leagues have said they're going to do it, but we haven't seen it yet. So, in order for a league to be in a certain division or tier on the pyramid, that league has to meet certain criteria. And criteria includes like number of teams in the league and stadium capacities and population in the markets, among other things. Well, in 2014, the USSF decided to update their requirements for Division II sanctions. Now, they're asking for the league to have a minimum of 16 teams. They're asking for a minimum seating capacity of 15,000 in their stadiums, and they want 75% of the markets to have at least 1 million people in it. I think you were allowed to have a little bit of wiggle room as far as like stadiums and market sizes, but for the most part, you're going to want to meet these requirements.
NASL were still labeled Division II despite never being able to meet the requirements. And I'm not just talking about the new requirements, they weren't even able to meet the old ones as well. And for that reason, I never really understood why NASL was given the Division II title while they stuck USL with Division III. And to be honest, there really wasn't anything to establish that NASL was superior to USL. In fact, if you look at the Open Cup record with NASL versus USL, it's USL that has the better record, with 13 wins to NASL's 11. So, if anything, maybe you can argue that USL was actually the superior league. But, okay, it's not like it's by some crazy margin. It's actually really close. So, myself, I basically consider these leagues to be even. U.S. Soccer gave NASL multiple years to meet the requirements, and they never did. And eventually in 2017, U.S. Soccer promoted USL up to Division II to be alongside NASL. Now, at one point, NASL and NISA were working together to create Pro-Rel in this country, which had a lot of people excited. But with NASL crumbling the way they were, obviously, that wasn't going to happen. NASL announced they were going on hiatus in 2018 with plans to return in 2019, and then to return in 2020, and then 20 never. The new NASL was officially dead. In the last NASL video, I outlined reasons as to why I think the league folded. Honestly, I don't think I need to put much effort at this go around, because I think the whole situation can be summed up by one word: pride. Rome wasn't built in one day. Hell, look how long it took for the NWSL to get some stability. Even MLS had to go through its rough patches, especially early on. I think if the NASL would have understood where it stood in the soccer landscape in this country, it could have survived. Instead of challenging MLS so early on and trying to be the kings of soccer in this country, I think if they would have just focused on building the best second or third division possible, they would have been better off. I mean, just look at the USL now. multiple divisions, youth academies, men's and soon-to-be women's leagues, and thriving soccer markets. There are some that prefer USL to MLS, and some that believe that someday, if they keep making the right moves, they could even challenge MLS. But if USL were to do that now and try to become Division 1, they'd get absolutely squashed. And USL understands this, and they are just working on improving the current product. In an alternate universe, that could be the NASL today.
But they let their pride and their ego get in the way. They just had to challenge MLS before they were really ready. And that lawsuit was the stupidest thing I have ever heard. There was 0% chance they were ever going to win that. The new NASL had potential, and to be fair, they did have a lot of success in certain markets. And they did produce a lot of talent that is performing well in MLS today. But apparently that wasn't enough for them. Thank you for subscribing, and extra thanks to those that have subscribed to my Patreon. It really does mean the world to me. You guys are letting me pursue my passion and chase my dream. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Verteidiger den Fluss.